everybody. We are back, and it is time to learn about hormones, thyroid, and gut health with our very special guest and friend, Jacqueline Shedden. Sorry, I always stumble on your name. I apologize.
No problem.
But she is a nurse practitioner, and she's going to be sharing with us all the information and experience that she has dealing with these three things and how they're all connected. So, Jacqueline, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to let you take over. And just give everybody a, introduction of who you are and what you do. And I'm excited to learn from you today.
Thanks, Tracy. Always good to see you. And I just wanted to thank you, Tracy, and Jamie and Rashid, for all the amazing things you do with Nutritional Frontiers. Absolutely love your products, love the company, and I'm really honored to be here with you guys today. So I am Jacqueline Shedden. I'm a nurse practitioner. Back in 2003, I graduated from nursing school, and in January 21st of 2004, I took my nursing boards, and without even knowing the results, I moved to Florida the very next day. My sister picked me up in her red convertible, and I began my nursing career down here. So I have been working in healthcare since I was 22. I just turned 40 last week. So I have seen my fair share of things come into the office, and working in the emergency room and med surge. I did home care for several years. So I've got to see a lot, in healthcare. And so the one thing that I have seen that makes such a big difference is really how we think. How do we think about our own health? And do we even think about our own health? And when I meet someone like a patient or something, I can usually put them into one of three categories, health consciousness categories. So the first category that I have been, that I've noticed over the years is that the type of person who is just trying to, get by, right? So they are more, they're not really concerned about their health necessarily. They probably go through the drive-through for most of their meals, maybe addicted to a soda, watch the news, that kind of thing. So their level of health consciousness is very low. The second level, which I see a lot, and that's where a lot of people are, and I encourage you to kind of decide what level of health consciousness you are as I go over these categories. So this type of person is just really trying to stay comfortable. So maybe on a Friday night, you had a super stressful week and you wanted to do pizza takeout and then have a bottle of wine, maybe a glass of wine, but you kind of get to the end of the week and you kind of just let loose. You probably go through the drive-through of Chick-fil-A and know that it's not necessarily the best thing for your health, but you're just so tired and exhausted that you just don't have the energy to really make some significant changes in your life. And even, a lot of times people in this level of health consciousness, they might have some relationships in their life that are not necessarily the best for them. And maybe they're stuck at a job that is not necessarily making them happy and fulfilled every day. So a lot of the patients that I see in my practice are kind of falling into this level of health consciousness. They do have that little voice inside them that is telling them there is more to life than this. You don't have to feel like you're in Groundhog's Day every day and you're just trying to survive. And they suppress that voice a lot of times because it's going to take action on their part. But after a while, they do want to take action because they're so tired of it. The highest level of health consciousness is what I like to call living in gratitude, trust, love, and abundance, or GTLA. So this type of person is the one that's going to really question the status quo. So they are going to question the menu at a restaurant and dissect it and see what is the best thing that they can do, but they can order that's going to be the healthiest. They're not going to be going through the drive-throughs, or even though they used to drink soda and they really liked it, they've given that up. And you want to really think about what level of health consciousness that you're functioning in on a day-to-day basis, because that's going to directly impact how you feel every single day. So when I was back when I was 38 and I had my daughter Sky, she was 5 weeks old at the time. And, she was struggling to gain weight. I had been to, the pediatrician's office, and we were going there every single day or every single week, and they were monitoring her weight, and she was not gaining weight, and they were very worried. And I was nursing her at the time, and that was something that I was very passionate about, and I really wanted to continue. But the doctor had told me that I really should start giving her a bottle, because it had been 4 weeks and she wasn't really gaining the weight that they would recommend, and it was time for me to give her the bottle. Now, if I was operating in a lower level of health consciousness, kind of that staying comfortable, I would have probably agreed and just did what the doctor had told me. But instead, I wanted to, reverse that, and I wanted to figure out what was going on with my daughter, because I knew that there was something going on that the fix wasn't going to be just giving her a bottle and going about my way. So believe it or not, I actually had a dream one night that she had a tongue tie. And, I was like, okay, well, what does this actually mean? I wasn't really sure, what exactly that meant. So I reached out to a lactation consultant, and she was able to refer me to a pediatric dentist. And lo and behold, she had a tongue tie and a lip tie. And we got it repaired. Everything was fixed. And within a week, I was still nursing her. And within a week, she gained a pound of weight. And the doctor was very, very happy. And so was I. And I never had to, do the bottle and go against what I knew in my heart that I didn't want to do, because I was operating at a higher level of health consciousness and listening, to that small voice inside my head. So, the biggest thing, one of the biggest challenges that I've learned over the years is just, listening to that small voice. And I tried to, talk to my family and stuff about this, and, just educate them on everything that I've learned. Like, I've been a nurse practitioner for almost 9 years, and I've always been basically always done functional medicine, more holistic medicine, focusing on the whole body, and really worked a lot with my dad on this. And so back after we had been living here in Florida for, several years, I got a call from my mom, and she had told me that my dad was in the emergency room, and he had, just suffered a heart attack, and they were going to be taking him to the cath lab. And this was something that was super, super scary for me and my whole family. We all moved down here together from New Jersey, and, I wanted many, many more years with all of us together, obviously. So when I found this out, I had been working as a nurse for several years. And so he, was in the ICU for a while and stuff, and he recovered, and he was discharged. And, I think back to that time, and he was really operating more at a lower level of health consciousness at that time, kind of just being more comfortable. We are Scottish, and he was actually born in Glasgow. So he really likes his pastries and his sweets and his potatoes and stuff. And he had been on cholesterol medication for a long time, but he still had that heart attack. So when he got discharged from the hospital, I knew enough now as a nurse, and we did get some nutrition in school, that I wanted to help him, elevate that level of health consciousness. And so oftentimes what happens when people, have a health scare, they are all in, they are ready to go, and they elevate their level of health consciousness very quickly, like my dad did. And he did make some changes and changed his nutrition a little bit, and started exercising more. And he would go to his doctor, and they would just kind of keep him on the medications and check in with him every, 6 months or whatever. So after a few months, he was on the path and doing well. And then as the time went on, his level of health consciousness dropped, and he started falling back into those old patterns of being comfortable, and his diet wasn't as good, and he started gaining a little bit of weight and not exercising as much. And, a few years later, unfortunately, he was having some shortness of breath while working outside in the Florida sun. He was doing that a lot, but this time, over a few weeks or so, he was starting to have severe shortness of breath. So he finally went to the doctor and was, let him know, hey, I'm having some trouble breathing. And then I got another call. and it was from my mom, and they had rushed him to the emergency room via ambulance, and he had to go get an emergency cath because his EKG results were not normal. He didn't have a heart attack, but they were very concerned based on what they found in the office, and so they rushed him by ambulance. So again, I was super, super nervous, but we found out that he had to have a stent placed, and it was in one of the worst areas, the widowmaker in the heart, and so he did have that stent placed. He stabilized, was discharged from the hospital, increased his level of health consciousness, did better for a little bit of time, and then just a short 2 years later, went in for his regular checkup, had to do just a cath to make sure everything was okay, and ended up, the cardiologist came out, we were in the waiting, in the waiting area, came out after doing the cath and said they had to have 3 more stents placed. So, he would, go up in his level of health consciousness and improve his health, and then he would fall back down. And his health was obviously deteriorating with having 3 more stents placed within a matter of only a few years. So he got out of the hospital, he stabilized, and I had been a nurse practitioner and had learned so much more by this point. And I was like, okay, Dad, we need to really take a step back and see what's going on, because your medication, that's, your cholesterol is not the issue. Your cholesterol is fine. You're on these medications and you're still having this issue. You're still having, these needing to have stents. So I said, why don't we do a really good comprehensive blood panel? Let's check your hormones. Let's check your thyroid. Let's go over your nutrition and see what exactly that you're eating every day, how much sugar you're eating, how much processed food you're eating. And so that's what we did. He came in as a patient, and, I got his blood levels back, and there was a lot of abnormal levels. So his testosterone was actually very, very low. And, he had actually shared with me that he was suffering from some depression and pretty bad anxiety and some brain fog. And his energy was super, super low, which I actually hadn't heard from him before. And so what did I do? So I helped improve his hormones by giving him testosterone pellets, which he felt so much better within a few weeks. I improved his thyroid function. I gave him some thyroid medication, some supplements, and I started improving his gut health. Now, at the same time of, going through all this cardiac stuff, he was also told by his primary care that he was pre-diabetic. So, these are all big red flags. So I was super excited to help him, improve his hormones and thyroid. And we were working on some of the nutrition and really focusing more on a low carb because he was becoming diabetic, full on diabetic. So he was starting to feel so much better, and he was really starting to operate in that high level of health consciousness. He was aware of what he was eating when he went out to eat. He would, my family would make fun of me because I would be like, okay, does this have gluten? Does this? And my order at a restaurant is never very easy, but I know that I'm going to be eating something that's not going to make me sick. So he started doing that, and that was actually super, super fun to see. So this went on, for a good, 18 months or something. He was doing really well. But patterns are hard to break. And then, we would meet for coffee or something, and he would order a muffin, or he would get a pastry, or, he started eating a lot more potatoes. And then fast forward a few months, and his doctor told him that he was actually diabetic. So even though he was, sustaining that high level of health consciousness and really sticking to a really low carb diet and exercising, it started to slip away. And so much so that he became diabetic. And his doctor, wanted to put him on a couple medications. Didn't necessarily talk about the nutrition factor necessarily, which is so important, which a lot of us miss. But, I said, okay, Dad, it's time. We've got your hormones, we got your thyroid working well. I said, we really got to dial in to your nutrition. And he was on board because he was having some brain fog. His energy was low again, despite having his hormones and thyroid being optimized. And he was ready. So I said, why don't you do my program? I have a 60-day program, Blue Sky Body. I said, the main thing is going to be the nutrition part, because that's your main thing. And that's honestly everybody's main issue, is their food, because that's the fuel that we're giving our body. And so he's like, I'm on board, So I started him on some of the amazing products at Nutritional Frontiers, my cleanse bundle, which is the power cleanse and the greens, and then the lymphatic tincture. And I did that for a whole month. And I did an elimination diet with him and a really low carb. And within a week, his brain fog lifted and his energy was so much better. And he started to lose weight. And in 6 weeks, he had lost 15 pounds. And he never had to go back on, he never had to go on any type of diabetic medication whatsoever. And, then I wanted to sustain his progress, right? So I did the next phase of healing his gut, improving his digestion, and, getting rid of candida and stuff like that. And things just started to progress, and of course my mom got involved. And, there's an amazing cookbook by Christina Kerp that I always recommend to my patients called Made Whole. And that is a keto paleo autoimmune protocol cookbook, and it has 145 recipes. And so my mom cooks out of that because she's all on board too. And, as a family now, we have all increased our level of health consciousness, and everyone is doing so much better. My dad does not have diabetes, thank goodness, and is not taking any diabetic medication. And we are actually going on a family vacation tomorrow. So it was just such a great turnaround, And the biggest thing for me is because we can all do something short term. We can all do something when New Year's comes around. We can all start, exercising more. Or some people go real drastic and they want to change their diet and go vegan overnight or start taking cold showers. But, the key is really about small steps. So what are some of the things that you can do to increase your own health consciousness? So the first one that I encourage you to do is take an inventory, right? So take an inventory of your life and actually write it down in like a journal or a notebook or whatever you have. And list out all the things that are really positive in your life, people, places that you go, things that you do, and try to surround yourself with that type of stuff consistently. My husband and I, Lee, we do this pretty often. Because sometimes you can just get so caught up in the day-to-day rat race that things kind of get lost in the shuffle. So we do this inventory at least once a year and make sure that we are surrounding ourselves with the most positive, uplifting people that are bringing light into the world, because that's going to help light us up as well. And then next, what category, what level of health consciousness are you operating in on a day-to-day basis? And sometimes it's hard to admit if you're in that more of a staying comfortable, because that's an easy place to be. And it does take some effort on your part to really want to change some of your nutrition habits, maybe your TV watching or news habits or Facebook, social media, so really take an inventory and see what level of health consciousness you're really operating in, because that's the first step to really determining what it is that, what needs to change, right? So, and one of the most important things that I have learned over the years is listening to ourselves, right? Because we do have that small voice inside. Like when my daughter was not gaining weight, and I had her assessed by 8 different doctors to figure out why she wasn't gaining weight, and I couldn't get an answer, right? But I intuitively knew that there was something going on. So listening to that voice, when you do pick up the phone to make that order for your pizza on a Friday night, why don't you call one of the healthier restaurants and make an order there? Yeah, like it's harder to do, but once you're full, and you've eaten a healthy meal, you are going to feel so much better than you would if you were eating that pizza. So the the next thing is, in your day-to-day life. So what is something small that you can do? What is something really small that you can do today? Sometimes, we need to get some answers first, like myself. So back when I was first starting out as a nurse practitioner, I did my comprehensive blood panel, a large panel of labs, and really checked my hormones, my thyroid, my vitamin D levels, inflammation levels, and my hormones were great. My thyroid was fine, but I had Hashimoto's. I had diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So for those of you that don't know, it's an autoimmune thyroid disorder, and autoimmune disorders, they attack your own body. So this was not something that I wanted to continue. I wanted to reverse it. And how did I do that? Well, the one small change I did was cut out gluten. And I didn't do anything else. I cut out gluten, very strict about it. I made sure I was that annoying person sitting at the restaurant, dissecting everything and making sure there was no, gluten in the soup or in the dressings or whatever. And I did that for, it's been 8 years now. And immediately I noticed a difference, and I was able to actually reverse my Hashimoto's, and I lost 6 pounds in the process, which I wasn't trying to do, which was awesome. But, oftentimes healthcare as a whole sometimes operates at that lower level of consciousness, just kind of hovering at that comfortable phase. So it's important for you to listen to that voice and really determine what it is that you need, for your own health, and trying to find somebody that can work with you, to dissect what's going on, not just say, hey, you're okay, everything's normal, your lab work looks good. Maybe you're just depressed and you need an antidepressant, or you need your husband to take you out on a date. I've heard that from my patients a lot, that's what they're told is their problem. But a lot of times the things that are missed can be found in the proper labs. So it's really, really important to find someone that you can connect with that is operating at a higher level of health consciousness, usually than you, so that they can help guide you, on your path. Because you don't want to wait. You don't want to wait until you're in the hospital bed and, your family's being notified that you just had a heart attack, and, you're trying to then make some, scramble and make some changes and stuff, because there's fear based in that. But oftentimes, it's not a sustainable thing. And I understand that, increasing your level of health consciousness can sometimes be awkward, if you're the only one at the party that's not drinking, that's not eating cake, or, you decided to give up alcohol, for 30 days or whatever. I understand that, because, for me personally, like, this has been a long, long journey. And, after I gave birth to my daughter back in July of 2018, I probably had the hardest time health-wise in my whole life, because I had gained 40 pounds. I ate a lot of carbs. I ate a lot of carbs when I was pregnant, and probably had a lot of candida. But after I had my daughter, before I had my daughter, my hormones and everything, my thyroid was really, really good. And then after I had my daughter, my hormones tanked. My testosterone was 64 before I had my daughter, and 8 after. And I definitely suffered with some postpartum depression, which a lot of people don't talk about, but it's a real thing. But I realized that it was really testosterone deficiency that was causing my issue. And I had a lot of anxiety, and then, found out that my thyroid was underactive, and was able to really dissect and deep dive into my own health. And the one thing that I wasn't able to do was lose weight. So my hormones were fine. My thyroid, I had improved. My vitamin D and all my other vitamin levels were really good. So I was like, okay, what is it that I need to do? And the one thing that I had avoided, because I was in this instant, I was operating in a lower level of health consciousness, was giving up dairy, because I ate dairy every single day of my life practically. It was a good snack, it was low in carb, and it was tasty, it was easy. So, if you're traveling or something, it's a lot easier just to have a piece of cheese. So I said, okay, my sister and I, who is a nurse as well here, she and I decided to do a Whole30. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of Whole30. It's an amazing program, and I did cut out dairy for 30 whole days, and I lost weight. Shocker. But more importantly than that is I felt really good. I really felt good. And just as a little test, even though I already knew the answer to this, I did try to reintroduce a little bit of dairy here and there, and it made my stomach hurt and made me feel like pretty bad. So I was like, okay, I can't eat gluten. Obviously, that's been going on for a long time. And now I have to increase my own level of health consciousness and realize that dairy is really inflammatory to me, like it is to a lot of people, and cut that out too. And I did, and I still have. And that's been, maybe a year and a half or so into this journey. So with the dairy-free stuff. So, and then I look at my own daughter, and I want to instill my own level of health consciousness, that higher level of health consciousness, living in gratitude, trusting myself, having that abundant mindset. And I want to instill that in my daughter. So, the importance of teaching our kids to live in that level of higher level of health consciousness is so important, because they are learning directly from our own experiences how to relate with food. And if when you go out to eat with your kids, the kids menu is by far the worst meal options, I think, on the whole menu. So instead of just ordering what's on the menu for her, my husband and I really made a pact to always give her healthy food, always. And she's going to be 3 in a few months, and we've been really good about it. And so we bring her food with us everywhere we go, because that to me is so important. It's such a vital lesson that she can learn early on in life, is her relationship with food, and to try to keep her on a low sugar diet. I'm not saying that all sugar is horrible, but we are giving kids apple juice and cakes and candy and all that stuff, and it's just not necessary. Like, there is no nutritional value to giving a kid apple juice. So I challenge you just to look at your own life, and if you do have kids, I know Mother's Day just passed and Father's Day is right around the corner, is just do, what is there some things that you can change? I know I get a lot of feedback from people who are like, well, my kid's like 4 or 5 and he won't eat anything and that. But honestly, like, the kids will usually eat what you give them. I know that's not the case for every single person, but if we just find different options, like getting that cookbook, for example, there is a lot of desserts and healthy food options in there for kids too. There's a whole kids friendly section that you can do. It's just seeking out that, those options that are not necessarily, available to us readily, or we're not necessarily told about any of this stuff when we go visit our regular doctor. So a lot of this stuff is available online and we can educate ourselves more so than we ever have been. But it's all about how we think about it, because we are a lot of us are really stressed and we're really tired. So a lot of times when patients come in to see me, I try to categorize everything out. So what is the most important thing that they're struggling with right now? And I am able to determine that based on their labs, obviously a health questionnaire and my assessment, but looking at their labs and really seeing, okay, what's going on? Because people are tired these days, and there's a lot of reasons why they're tired. Do they have hormone levels that are low? Do they have hypothyroidism, or thyroid that's just not functioning as well as it should? Low vitamin D levels. Have they ever had mono, or do they have chronic fatigue viruses that are maybe flaring up because their stress level is so high? Are they not sleeping because they're so anxious, or they're waking up at 3, 4 in the morning and can't go back to sleep because they're so anxious all the time and their mind doesn't stop? So, seeking out those answers, listening to that small voice inside. Maybe you were told by one of your providers that, hey, you're just getting old. There's not much we can do about it. You're hitting that age. It's kind of to be expected. Or all of your labs came back and they look normal. Challenge that, because there is other options out there, but you have to be the one that's going to advocate for yourself. Because healthcare has totally changed. When my grandmother was younger, whatever the doctor said, she did, and that was it. There was no, going against that. But I think now there's just so much more information out there that we can challenge that. and searching for the right person to help elevate your health consciousness and improve your health overall. Because if you find out on your labs that your hormones are really low and your thyroid is imbalanced, and that's why you're not losing the weight, you're tired all the time, despite exercising and eating well, you're not getting the results that you need. Imagine if you got the results that you wanted, and then you had some energy, and then you were more prone to want to work out and make some dietary changes, because it's not all about dumping something on somebody and like having them figure out how to do it. It has to be systematic, because people are already under high amounts of stress, and it's an intense time in our world right now. And making it simple for yourself, and just choosing one thing. Maybe you can cut out that Chick-fil-A drive-through, or eliminate that caramel macchiato with 65 grams of sugar Starbucks every morning that you like, because it's just become a habit. Because once you do the smallest little thing, you will have some of the biggest results, and they'll be able to sustain them long periods of time. And then you can actually share it with other people and help elevate their level of health consciousness too. All right, Tracy, come on back.
Well, that was awesome. Hey, I wanted to ask you, because that's what I've been seeing a lot of too, is the underlying like viruses, right, that get activated through stress. So I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned chronic fatigue viruses, you mentioned some of those, which like retroviruses that can be activated from a repressed immune system. What protocols do you use to overcome those?
So there's a couple different things. I have patients that actually have never had like mono as a kid. And so I do check their antibodies, because sometimes if I'm correcting everything else and they're still like, I'm exhausted, then I'm like, okay, let's check into some of the chronic fatigue. One of the most effective, I think, is like the IV Myers. That's really, really good. And then anything that's going to help support your immune system, like something like monolaurin, vitamin C, and zinc, things that are going to bring up your immune system and bring down the virus. So make it more dormant. I struggle with that myself. I have a couple chronic fatigue viruses and never had mono before, but do have Epstein-Barr antibodies, and it flares up, and I kind of can figure it out now and know. But just getting the right amount of sleep, and honestly, eating well is going to help improve your immune system the most. And then if you do need some additional vitamins and stuff, like monolaurin, lauricidin are two of the ones that I use a lot, plus the vitamin C is a really good thing to do to help bring that down.
Yeah, somebody texted me the other day and they were like, hey, I used monolaurin and it helped me get over COVID. And I was like, well, it didn't help you get over COVID. It helped you get over that dormant retrovirus that got activated by COVID. I was like, but yeah, you can use those things. So I think it's good that you're addressing it, because that's what I address. Like when I scan people, when I see them in practice, what I'm seeing pop up are what you're saying, Epstein-Barr. I'm seeing, staph, streptococcus. And I'm like, why is all this stuff popping up? Pertussis pops up a lot. And I'm like, oh, you got some activated little viruses here that used to be under control. And now with all this major stress of life, they're popping up. And their complaints are like what you're saying: tired, fatigue, adrenal burnout, hormone disruption. So yeah, that's such good information. And I appreciated everything you said, because I think people look for like this big bad thing that's going to help them. And really it's just simplicity. It's like, let's go back to foundations.
Yeah, it's really, really simple. And honestly, for me, it all comes down to getting the right labs and having somebody that's going to look at them. A lot of times patients only have a TSH level check for a thyroid, and like that's just the signaling from the brain to the thyroid gland. And so if your T3 isn't being converted, that is the active hormone in the body, and if you don't have enough T3 in your body, then you're not going to feel good. And prior to having my daughter, my thyroid and everything was awesome, and then 7 weeks into pregnancy, or 7 months into pregnancy, I was like, I don't think I should be this tired. It's like the end of obviously when you get really close to the end, and my thyroid was low. And then after I had her, it was even lower. And the biggest thing for me too was the hormones. Such a drastic change, and so many women never recover from pregnancy, never really feel like themselves again. And I absolutely didn't. You can just ask my husband, he'll tell you. But like, once I was able to balance my hormones and increase my testosterone and improve my thyroid, I never looked back. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's just finding the right person to really get the labs, because I think that's such a key part of what the problem is.
Yeah. And a lot of people just don't know because they don't understand what questions to ask. And I think you put a lot of clarity to that. Like, challenge the labs. Like, we shouldn't be treating the test. You treat the person.
Yeah. People come into
So,
my office all the time with fatigue and are told, just recently somebody was told that they were just down. They had low libido, young, newly married, and her doctor told her that, she just needs to have her husband take her on a date. That was like the professional advice.
well, you know what I say to my husband? I'm like, you know what would really
The
do
date
it for
is
me,
great.
baby?
Like,
That's right. If you mop, like, run the vacuum, that's awesome.
yeah, go on a date, but maybe have enough energy to like go dancing afterwards or something,
Right.
like.
I was like, can we do a sleeping date? That sounds great. Can we just nap? Yeah. So yeah, supporting the adrenals, just understanding and not letting somebody tell you there's nothing wrong when you know something's wrong. Get to the right person, because your body will give you signals to get you to the right person. And that's normally what I tell people when they come to see me. I'm like, your body did everything right to get you right here. So now let's get you back to feeling good, right? Let's get you back to health. So this has been great. How can people contact you? Do you do virtual appointments? What does that look like?
Yeah, so my website is Blue Sky Health. My practice is named after my daughter Sky, so it's Blue Sky with an E, health.com. I have a health assessment questionnaire that you can fill out online. And, you can always call the office as well, but the easiest way is just to go to my website. I have the health assessment questionnaire, and I do free 20-minute consults for anybody that's just kind of looking to see what I do. I do work with people, in other parts of the country, working on nutrition and some of the programs and stuff that I offer. So the easiest way is, just to go to the website and kind of look around there, and you can send me a message or, sign up for a consult right on there.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you. You are such a blessing, and I'm so glad you're on the functional side of health when it could have looked a lot different in your path.
Happy to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So get in touch with Jacqueline if you want to get a consultation with her, get the right tests, the right direction. She is amazing, and you've helped so many people. So we're just grateful you're a part of our team. And thank you for coming on today. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, always a pleasure with you, Tracy. Thank you.
All right, guys, stay tuned because Robert Scott Bell is up next, and we will be coming back at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you soon. Get in touch with Jacqueline. You will not regret it.